Hello and welcome to the Adobe Twitch channel. My name is Terry White, worldwide designer and photography evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure to stream live to you on Tuesdays and Fridays here on twitch.tv/Adobe at 10 a.m. Eastern till noon Eastern. We're doing a two-part series. It's been going on now for 5 weeks. This is week number 4. And we're just wrapping up week number 4 today on Friday with the 2 parts. And the first part is just a random thing. And in this case, I've chosen to do a hour on automating Photoshop in Lightroom, something that I rarely get a chance to talk about. It's usually a footnote in a larger demo, but this time I'm going to actually dedicate some time to it. And also on the second hour, which will be at 11 to noon Eastern Time, I'll be doing Intro to Photoshop Part 8, which is how to work non-destructively. So that's been a 10-part series. We're up to Part 8. We wrap it up next Friday with Part 10. So, and by the way, just as another footnote, this Tuesday there's a slight schedule change once again, just like this past Tuesday. Unfortunately, it was a scheduling conflict with the stream on Twitch, so I'll be doing only an hour on Tuesday from 10 to 11, just like we are now, and that will be Intro to Photoshop Part 9. So after, in a few days, on Tuesday, Tuesday, whatever date that is, I think it's the 19th. All right, so with that said, what are we going to be working on today? We're going to be working on Photoshop and Lightroom and ways to work with an automated workflow. And of course, that includes actions. It includes automating things that can just happen, automatically for you. Processing your images automatically, things that we can do. And with that said, today is also a test, an additional test that I'm going to be doing, and that is I'm also streaming live to my Facebook fan page. So if you're on Facebook, you can head over to facebook.com/Terry White Fans, and you can also watch the stream there as well. But of course, we love having you here on Twitch. And good morning, Fran Arts on Twitch, and good morning to Marianne and Alvaro and Sammy and all the people I have missed so far on Facebook. Sorry if I missed your comments. Now, if you're watching this as a video on demand or a replay or on my YouTube channel, in other words, you're watching this after it happened live, note that it was a live broadcast, and therefore from time to time I'll stop what I'm doing, look over at my chat pods, both for Twitch and Facebook, to make sure I'm not missing any important comments. I want to check one thing though real quick before we get too far into it. Let's see if I can open this chat window up more. Let's see if it'll let me do this. I know that it will. Window up more. I want to mute me. I don't need to be. There we go. Now I can scroll the chat window and scroll back and see what comments I might have missed. All right, so how often do I go live? Geraldo's asking. I go live every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So today's Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So you're catching me live. Hey, Pat, how's it going? And we're going to go ahead and kick things off now. I'm going to switch over to my desktop so you guys can see what's going on. And welcome, everyone. And again, my name is Terry White, worldwide design and photography evangelist for Adobe. And let's kick things off with being automated in Photoshop and Lightroom. So let me go ahead and switch cameras here. All right, and in a moment, you should be able to see my desktop. And with that said, one of the first ways, and probably the biggest way to automate Photoshop, is via actions. Let me also silence my devices here. Turn the notifications off there, and the notifications are already off there. Great. Okay, so actions are one of the oldest forms of automating inside Photoshop, and it's also one of the most confusing in some cases, because a lot of people, there's so many different ways to use actions that a lot of people miss out on some of those ways, or just how to set it up and how to get it working. So with that said, let me start off with, I just want to make sure I'm looking at my notes here also. I'll start off with actions in Photoshop, and then we'll talk about conditional actions, which is a new feature in Photoshop CC, and then we'll go from there. All right, so just one more window management thing here. It's kind of hard juggling all the windows with the notes and the chat pods and everything else I want to see. All right, I think I got everything now in place. Okay, cool. Hey, GoBJ69, what's up? And can you teach? Okay, so I'm not teaching any drawing today. Sorry to disappoint you. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and start off with actions. So I've got Photoshop open, and I'm in the Essentials panel, which is where most people will start out when they're in Photoshop for the first time. And since it's Essentials, it's kind of a beginner workspace. It does not include the Actions panel. So when you go under your window menu, you can come down to Actions. That will open it up as a new panel. And more than likely, the only thing, unless you've ever created actions, the only thing you'll ever see are the default actions. And these are the ones that come with Photoshop. So there's a default action called Molten Lead. There's one called Sepia Toning Layer. There's one, Save Photoshop as PDF. What are all these actions and what are they for? Well, again, they're just random default actions that the Photoshop team has included with Photoshop for years and years and years, because some of these I remember from many years ago. And they were just there put in as samples, things for you to try out, and things for you to get some inspiration and experiment with creating your own actions. So one of the first questions that people will normally have is, well, what's an action and how do I make one? Well, first and foremost, bring the panel up. Secondly, an action is, if you think of Photoshop being able to do, whatever you do manually, think of the actions panel and creating an action as the old-fashioned tape recorder. So you press record, you go do the thing you want Photoshop to remember how to do, you press stop, and then whenever you want Photoshop to do that thing, you just press play, and it will do whatever it is you recorded. Now, there are some pitfalls with actions because not every single thing can be automated or remembered the exact same way, because a lot of it will be conditioned on every file you bring up. So for example, if you have a layer called, face. You have a layer called face, and then you go record an action based on that face layer. And then you open up the next file tomorrow and you go to play that action back and there is no face layer, then Photoshop will likely complain and say, hey, the face layer is missing. I can't run this action. So you got to remember, it is very literal in most cases too, to where the action has to be able to do the same thing over and over again. So you have to think about that when you're recording your actions. Am I recording something that can be repeated no matter what the file is? So for example, if you're recording an action that's based on not even a layer name, but just a layer in general, and there is no layer, then Photoshop's going to complain. I can't do this action because there's no layer in the file. It's just a background. So think about what it is you want to automate, and then think about, can this be repeated on any file? And if the answer is yes, then you've made a good action. All right, so we're going to make one just from scratch. And I'm going to go in and open up my, I'm in my library panel already, so I'm going to go ahead and open up an image. Actually, I want to open up, we'll open up this one. We've used this one before, but we'll just use it for our action now. Now, one of the actions, or one of the things that I do a lot, is I process images for the web, meaning I need or my blog, I need them to be a specific size, and I need them to then be saved for web with JPEG high and so forth and so on. Those are the kinds of things I don't want to have to remember to do manually every single time. So for example, one of the things I can do is I can record a new action. So I'm in the actions panel here, and I can say that I want to create a new action, which is the little paper icon. And once I click the little paper icon, it'll ask me, okay, what do you want to call the action? I'm going to say save for blog, because that's what it will really be. And then I'm going to, you can tell it where to put it. So do I want to put it in the default actions, my actions, and the retouching? I don't get a chance to say no set. So hang on, let me cancel this for a second, and let's make a new set called Twitch. Or I should call it live stream. All right, so now I got this set called live stream. Now I'll make my new action so it can be in the live stream set, and we'll call it save for blog. So this means no matter what the image is, I want to size it down to no more than 650 pixels wide, and then save it for the web. All right, so let's click record. And now, when you click record, Photoshop is just sitting there waiting. It says, okay, I'm watching you from now on. Whatever you do, I'll start recording the steps. And then once it's done recording, once you're done with the steps, you just press the stop button. Now, I'm sitting here explaining this. The good thing is, unlike a tape recorder or DVR, it's not recording in real time, meaning it's not recording the 5 minutes I'm taking to explain this. It's going to start with whatever the first step is that I do and run it as fast as your computer can do it. So that's the best thing about actions, is that they're not in real time. All right, so if I go up to my image menu and I come down to image size and I say that I want the image size to be 650 pixels wide, that'll handle the wide. So as soon as I click OK, watch what happens. It adds image size as the action. So it just waited for me to do something, and it says, okay, you've done something, you clicked OK, I'll add that as part of the action. The next thing I can do is go to File, Export, Save for Web, or I can even use the new Quick Export, but I'll do Save for Web Legacy, since that's what I'm used to using. And it's now already the right size. I can pick whatever settings I want, and then I can go ahead and save it to my desktop and click Save, and now Export has been added to my action. So now when I click Stop, because that's all I need to do, or I could click Close so that I'm not having to have all the files open. So let's do one more. Close, and don't save. So now that's been recorded. So now I'll go ahead and stop the action, and my action consists of 3 steps. So whatever image is open, size it down to no more than 650 pixels wide, save it for web, and then close it without saving. And if you twirl these down, you can even see the options. So saving, no, meaning I don't want to save the changes, just go ahead and close it. Export, all the save for web settings. You can't go in and tweak these. It would be nice if you can go in and click those and tweak them one by one, but you can't. Image size, 650. So it's great that it remembers all the settings in the dialog that you chose when you did your recording. All right, so let me stop for a second before we test this out. Let me make sure I'm not missing any questions here. And do you need to have an image open first recording the action? What would happen if you just started before the image opens? Okay, Pat, that's a good question. And the answer is yes and no. You can start the action without an image open, but when you go to open an image to do something or create a new file or whatever, that becomes part of the action. So you got to remember, it is literal. So if I start with no image open and I say, okay, now go open the image called flower, well, that's going to record open an image called flower. Or if I go no action, or I'm sorry, no image open, file new, then that's fine because it'll always create a new file. So it just depends on what you want to do with no file open. The best part about having a file open, in my case, notice there's nothing about opening a file. There's nothing about a specific file. So just by choosing to have a file open and doing those steps means that now this can play back on any file because it's not, I didn't have any of the opening part or which file as part of the action. So hopefully that answers that both ways. All right. The new Photoshop not showing. The new Photoshop not showing the files open recent. It is for me, but make sure you are using, make sure you are using the latest update. I know there was a bug when when this CC 2015 came out with the new recent, or the new getting started screen, that recents weren't showing. But that has been addressed as far as I remember. So if I go to my file menu and go to my open recents, yeah, these are the recents that I last worked on. So that bug should have been fixed. So just make sure you're on the latest update for CC. All right, so now I've recorded my action. Here's my action. I can twirl it back up. So now I have an action called Save for Blog. And if I open up a different image, like this one, and it's a different aspect ratio, it doesn't matter. But if I look at the image size, let's look at it for a minute. The image size for this image is 3456, so it's bigger than 650, which is great. And so now if I click on this action and click play, watch what happens. It should do all 3 steps as quickly as Photoshop can do it on my computer. That was it. It's just in a flash, it closed. So the best part is, you didn't see the Save for Web dialog. You didn't see the image size dialog. You didn't see any dialogues. It just did it as fast as your computer can process it. So if I go out to my desktop, I should have both images now. There's the one I just did, and here's the other one that I did earlier. Those are now ready to upload for my blog. They're in JPEG format. They've been saved for web. They've been downsized. So I can now run that on my on any image I want, any image that's open in Photoshop. So that's what an action does. Now, there are lots of options for actions. For example, let's say you wanted to, I'm glad you're liking this, Jan, so far. Let's say, really very useful, these actions. I'm glad you're liking it too, VR Spirit. But let's say I'm not, or let's say there's a variable. Let's say that 650 is not always what I want, but I want everything else. I want it to bring up image size, save for web and close the file, but I don't know what the image size will be each time unless I type it in myself, meaning it can vary from image to image. Then what you can do is, notice there's a little box in front of each step of the action. So this is the action, and these are the steps. So there's a little box in front of each step, and if I click on the little box in front of each one of these, then what that tells Photoshop to do is, when you get to image size, bring it up and stop, pause. Let me interact with image size, click OK, and then finish the action. Go through the rest as fast as you can. This will give you the option to have a variable action, an action that records a bunch of things or does a bunch of things for you, but where you need to interact with the step, putting in a specific number, putting in a specific value, because it changes maybe for image to image. Then you can have that box come up and stop the action until you interact with it, click OK, and then it finishes the rest of the action, or goes on until it encounters another thing that you want to be able to input. Still saving you time, because you're not having to go through and put those things in one by one. So for example, if I bring up this one and I run my save for blog, because I told it to stop on image size, watch what happens. It stops. It still remembers my setting, but now I can change the setting to whatever I want and then click OK and let it run the rest. So maybe on this one, I want it to be for Instagram. So really I want it to be, oops, sorry, that keyboard wasn't awake yet. So I want it to be 1080 in this case. Now I click OK and it finishes it. So it did the export and the close without saving, but it let me put in whatever values I want on that one dialog box every single time. And again, you can toggle that on and off. For the action, I can toggle, maybe I want to do different save for web settings. I can say, okay, every time it brings it up, because sometimes I save for JPEG, sometimes I save PNG. So depending on what kind of file it is, maybe I want that box to come up every single time and let me choose and then finish the action out. So your actions can be quite elaborate. They can be automatic, meaning that they do whatever it is you programmed or they can let you stop in between and make choices. So that's what these little boxes are for in front. Now, let's say you left off a step, or now you're getting fancy and you say, well, maybe after the image size, I want to run a filter and I forgot to record it. Well, if you click on the step preceding the one that you want to now insert, in other words, I want to insert run a filter after image size, then what you can do is put your cursor or click on the step that you want to record something after, and then you can still click record. So I can come down here and click the record button, and now it's watching me, and every step I do from now on will be inserted after image size. So if I say, oh, and I can't, hang on, hold on, I gotta stop. I can't do it because I don't have anything open. You can't run a filter when you don't have an image open to run a filter on. All right, so let's go do this. And let's go ahead now and say record. Yep, record, and let's go filter. It doesn't really matter, any filter's fine. Let's do a Gaussian blur. All right, we'll do a Gaussian blur 1919 setting. Okay, so see how it added Gaussian blur in after image size, and it's still recording. So I can add as many steps as I want after. Now let's close it, or I'm sorry, not close it, but stop it. And I'm going to undo that Gaussian blur. Now, if I had left it recording, it would record the undo because it's literal. It's saying, you did something, you undid it, you must want that recorded because you told me to record everything you do. I just wanted to point out that, well, maybe I want the Gaussian blur before. Now I've changed my mind. I want it before the image size. So you can drag and drop these in order. So you can, because maybe it makes more sense to apply the Gaussian blur while the image is full size, then size it down, then save it for web, then close it without saving. Okay. All right, just making sure I miss, how can I get multiple images to resize them all at once? Okay, Nazar, that is coming up. That's a very good question. So Nazar on Facebook he's already one step ahead. He's like, this is cool, but the whole point of automating is I don't want to do it one by one. So we're coming to that in just a second. Matter of fact, we're going to do it multiple ways. All right, so let's say that I want to try this action out now. So I can go in, go up to the top here, and now it's going to be interesting because this one may give me an error. Because remember, we already did this file, and that file already exists on the desktop. So when it goes to save it, we'll see what happens. Play. Okay, it worked. Let's see if it did the right thing, if it replaced it or not. It looks like it just replaced it. Yep, it replaced the one that was already there. So you got to be careful when you're running your actions because it could replace the files that are already there if you don't tell it to warn you for things. And there's an option to tell it to warn you, by the way. So in that case, it made my blurry version and my original file still intact, didn't do anything else. And by the way, just like we can reorder steps or add steps in between, if you don't like that step, you can delete that step. So very cool to be able to not only start a recording, but augment or alter it in your action after the fact. Maybe I left off a step, maybe I want to change a step, maybe I want a dialog box to pop up when I run a step. I can do any of these changes along the way after the action's been recorded. Okay, so now, obviously it's great to be able to run an action on a one-by-one instance whenever you need to. But really in an automated world, we would want to batch process. We would want to do this on several things, not just one at a time. So while the action part that we just did is the first step, that is always the first step in what you do is create the action. Once the action's created, you've got some additional ways to work. So for example, we got this save for blog action ready to go. And let's say that I've got a folder of images, which I do here. I'm going to duplicate this. And we're going to rename it. and we're going to call it blog images. All right, so now we got this folder called blog images, and this folder has 4 images in it. All right, so now what I want to do is I would love Photoshop to just say, to run the action on those 4 images. And by the way, we can get rid of the ones we already did. We don't need these anymore. So I wanted to make blog images the right size out of those 4, 40, 400, 4,000, 50,000 images, how many are ever in the folder. Just do it. So if I go back to Photoshop, my action's there. I don't want to have to open them up one by one and do them one by one. What I would rather do is go up to the File menu, where there's even an Automate menu, and choose Batch. When I choose Automate Batch from File, that will bring up this, and notice what it did. It even brought up the action that was selected. So it brought up my live stream set, save for blog. Now it's saying, okay, what do you want to run them on? I want to run them on a folder. Which folder? So I can go to Source. I can, not the trash, sorry. Those are ones I've deleted already. Let's go here. Desktop and blog images. That's the folder I want to run it on. Now you've got some other things you can do. You can say, what do you want to happen? If there is an open command in your action, do you want to override it? I don't have any. Do you want to include subfolders in that folder? Yes or no? Do you want to suppress any dialogues or profile warnings? And do you want to stop on errors? Meaning if it runs across something it can't do in the action, do you want it to stop or just keep going? Then the destination. Where do you want these to end up? Now, if that's not part of your action, in this case it's part of my action, save them to the desktop. But if I wanted them to end up in another folder, which if I'm running 40,000, I would want it to be in a folder, not just loose on the desktop, then I can choose that new folder, override my saving commands with new commands, and just let it do it. So I'm just going to say none for this because it should just work because the action is already doing a save and close, and there's only 4 images, so I'm not worried about it putting 4 images on the desktop. If I was worried about it, where it was putting them, then I would choose a folder and tell it where to put those images. All right, so let's go in and, all right, William, if you can't see the audio, refresh, jump out, jump in, you should be able to see it. Okay, so let's go in, let's click OK. And now it's going to do it because I'm telling it to do a batch, and I'm now telling it to just go ahead and do it. And you will see it open up the images as fast as it possibly can. Now, wait, it only looked like it did 2. Well, that was only the 2 you saw because you saw it in a split second because it just couldn't open and close them fast enough without you seeing them. So even though you only saw 2, it did all 4. So you might see it randomly doing something in Photoshop because your computer is not that fast, meaning you will see something every now and then, but it is actually doing the entire folder, and in this case, it did each one to the desktop, saved out 650 pixels wide, ready to go. So for Nazar, for the person that asked me, how do you do it with multiple images? That's one way to do it with multiple images. All right. So what else? What if you're going to do it on multiple images? Or what if you just want to be able to do it without having to go through the process of launching Photoshop, going to File, choosing Batch, finding a folder, running it on that folder, so forth and so on. So now we're even getting more, I shouldn't say lazy, but lazy with our automation, meaning that's even too much work. I want Photoshop to do more. All right, so I'm going to throw these 4 away. We still have our blog images, so the originals are still in here. And notice the originals, by the way, were PSD, so it still made the JPEGs because that's what Save for Web does. All right, so now let's go in and let's do another one. Instead of me opening them up one by one and running the action, or going to the File menu and choosing Batch and running the action on a folder, I just want to be able to do this randomly without having to even open Photoshop first. So that's the next part of our automation. Automate, create droplet. This is one of my favorites. I do this all the time for things I want to be able to do without having to think to go to Photoshop first. So when I say create a droplet, it'll ask you where do you want to create the droplet. So I'm going to choose where I want it. I want it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it Save for Blog. Save. And then which action, let's see here. Hold on for a second. All right, hang on. I might have technical difficulties going on here. Oh, I see it. Okay, it looks like it's back. Let me just check. Yep, okay, we're back. All right, so I'm going to go in and say that I want it to play the Save for Blog action, and then where do I want to, I already told it where I want to put it on the desktop, and destination, save and close. Nope, no destination because that's all part of the action anyway. So we'll click OK. And now that didn't run it or process any images. All that did was, if I go to my desktop again, is it created this Save for Blog droplet. That's what this is. So now at any given time, whenever I want to make a blog image, whether Photoshop is open or not, I can go in and I can just say, hey, you know what? This folder needs to be processed for my blog. Drop it on the droplet. It will launch Photoshop if it has to, and then it'll just process those images. Here they all come. Now, was it opening those images up in Photoshop and doing them one by one? Yep. Did we even see it? It might have been doing a little window in the background behind this, but the point is, it was doing it. So that droplet is there. You can put it anywhere you want on your hard drive. I like to keep them on the desktop because they are droplets. And then I already have one here called Save for Web CC, which is another blog that the image is even smaller. Actually, it's for my podcast. And that way, it will and that one pretty much processes the images and puts them in my other folder, my CS podcast folder, which should be CC now. But that's how old that folder is. But anyway, this one just put them on the desktop, and here they are, ready to go again, of course. Now, let's say I didn't believe it. Let's open them up. Let's go to image size. And I didn't believe it. Yeah, it's 650. It did it. So it's doing the right thing. It's doing whatever you told the action to do. So far, pretty quickly, we've learned how to make an action, how to record an action from scratch, how to edit an action that's already been done, how to bring up a dialogue for any individual steps you want, how to batch process using that action on a whole folder full of things, and my favorite, how to make a droplet so that I don't have to even engage Photoshop first. Now, of course, it still needs Photoshop on your computer. It still needs to open Photoshop to actually do the work. But even if Photoshop wasn't open, I just drag on the droplet, it opens Photoshop, processes everything, and leaves Photoshop open. Because otherwise, you'd have to include a step that quits Photoshop, but then it would do it on every single image, which that wouldn't be good either. Cool. Jan, glad you love droplets. They are nice. Hey, Steph, it is me. So, great to see so many of you here. We got like 309 people here live on Facebook. This is awesome. All right, and great also, of course, to see everyone on Twitch as usual. So that is a droplet, and again, it's one of my favorite actions. Now, there's something new. That's pretty much the way actions have worked for years. I haven't really shown you anything that's new with actions, but I'm about to. There is a new, in CC, there is a new kind of action called a conditional action. Just make sure I got everything going here. Looks good. Am I frozen here? All right, hang on. Let's see if the Twitch stream is still going. Can you guys still see me on Twitch? Looks like I'm frozen, or maybe is it my camera's frozen? All right, I'm refreshing my page. All right, I'm back. I'm moving now. Okay, cool. You can see me now. All right, awesome. So let me show you the new thing with actions in Photoshop, and that is called a conditional action. Because while you can have an action play steps sequentially, what you've never been able to do before is say, what if? In other words, you want the action to do something based on the condition of the file. If the file is one thing, do this. If not, do that. So that's an if, that's a conditional action. So one of my favorite examples for that is, what if you needed to process images differently based on if they're portrait or landscape? Because randomly before, you'd have to process all the portrait images with the portrait action, process all the landscape images with the landscape action. And now you could have Photoshop determine if it's portrait or landscape and do whichever action it needs to do. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, first we need an image open. So again, it doesn't matter which image as long as it's portrait or landscape. So actually I have some portraits and landscapes here in this folder that I've been playing with. So let me open up one of each. All right, we'll open up one of each. So there's a landscape, and there's a portrait. All right, so I'll start with the portrait. What I want it to do is, if it's portrait, I want it to put my watermark in the bottom left corner. If it's landscape, I want it to put my watermark in the bottom right corner. And I'm just using that as an example. Normally my watermark's in the same place, but just to show you how this works. All right, so we'll do the first act. You still need to record an action for both cases, but then you can make a conditional action that uses both of them. So the first action, TW portrait. That's what I'm going to call it. And record. And now it's just sitting there waiting for me to do my thing. So my first step is to file, place, embedded. And when I do my place embedded, I'm going to go find my logo. My logo is right. Actually, I have a different version of it. Actually, that one will be fine. We'll use that one. And then I can go in and I can move it around and I can scale it down. That one doesn't look very good though. You know what? I'm going to stop. That's not the one I want. So sometimes you make a mistake. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer and delete that step because that was the wrong one. All right, now I can record again. And let me go find the right one. File, place, embed it. And I should have known because there we go. Final number 2. That's the right one. There we go. Because this one's bigger. So I can scale it down, meaning it's a higher res. And put that where I want. And I can also lower the opacity. Now, although normally I would bring up the opacity slider, but since recording actions is very literal, the slider, as you're dragging it, let's say you go from 100 to 90 to 78 to 70, it's going to try and record each one of those steps. So if you know you want a specific number, and maybe experiment with that first before you record, type in 70 so that that becomes one step, as opposed to you dragging a slider and it's trying to remember everywhere you paused for a second. So set the current layer to 70% opacity. And then for the sake of being able to save these, because as we know with layers, you have to save it as a PSD or TIFF or something that can contain layers. Since this is an action that's just going to process images, I'm going to go ahead and flatten it now. I know, no, it's destructive. That's okay. We're just doing this as an action. Okay, so now it's placed my logo, set that layer to 70% opacity, and then flatten the image, which that's fine for an action. And then I'm just going to go ahead and stop. That's all I needed to do for the portrait images. Now on the landscape images, same thing. We record a new action, and we'll call this one TW Landscape. And same thing, file place. Good thing it doesn't record you going up and down looking for the thing you want. File place, embed it, and scrolling through your file system trying to find the thing you want. Luckily, none of this is saved. Place. And then it does remember position, and it will only lock into position once you click the accept button on the now, if I wanted to size that to a specific size, then I would type in the exact percentage or size that I wanted that scale down to so it's consistent on the portraits and landscapes. But in this case, we're just doing a sample, a test. All right, so we'll lock that one in. So it does my place. And then again, we'll tell it to change the opacity to 70%. So just remember that when you're doing things that need to be consistent, don't use sliders, don't manually scale things, use numbers wherever you can. That way they'll always be the same. So in this case now, and last but not least, we want to flatten this out. So flatten image. Okay, and now we can stop the action. So now I've got one called TW Portrait and TW Landscape. Now I'm going to go ahead and revert these images so that they don't have the logos on them. Revert. Okay. And let's see, let me check questions real quick here. All right, looks like we got everybody. Good. Just making sure I got all the questions that I see. Okay, so at this point now, I need to make one more action that is the actual one that will use both of those depending on the image. So I need to make the conditional action. So in this case, I'm going to make the conditional action, and the conditional action is going to be TW watermark, because that's really what it's doing. I don't need one called portrait, one called landscape. I need the one that's going to include both. So I'm going to go ahead and click record, even though I'm not recording anything. So the minute you create the action, go ahead and stop the recorder, because this is not an issue of recording me step by step. The actions are already done. I now just need an action that will play them using a conditional statement. So in this case, I now go to the flyout menu for the actions panel in the upper right hand corner. And once I go to the flyout menu, we choose insert conditional. So in other words, this is the new feature in CC that I can insert a conditional statement that gives me these choices. If the document is landscape, do this. It's square, it's RGB, it's CMYK, it's got a color profile, it doesn't, it's 16-bit, 8-bit, 32-bit, has unsaved changes, has a selection, has layers, has alpha channel, the document is open, layer is background, layer is pixel, all these various layer ones. These are all the conditions that Photoshop CC currently supports. The first one is what I really want. If it's landscape, then play TW landscape. If not, meaning it's not landscape, then play TW portrait. Now, not landscape means it's either portrait or square. Those are only the other two choices. Otherwise, it's landscape. So basically, make sure your portrait action works on squares as well. So in other words, if the document is landscape, do this. If not, do this. So that's why you need it to record both actions first. Click OK. That becomes, now I can keep making an action if I want part of that to do something else, but I'm good. That's all I need. So now I have this TW watermark action, and now let's go ahead and test it. So if I go ahead and click on this, I'm on a portrait image. Let's see what happens. It should put it in the lower left corner. It did. If I go to this one, since it's and here we'll zoom out a little bit. Since it's a landscape, it should put it in the lower right-hand corner. Using the same action, play, it does. So that's how conditional actions work. Depending on what the document is, it will automatically do it. Can you make this a batch? Absolutely. Can you make it a droplet? Absolutely. Same things would apply. The only difference here is I didn't record anything that says close the image, even though I can now. I can go back and say, after you've decided which one it is and run the watermark, close the image and save. Or save for web, whatever it is, whatever I want it to do, save as. Or I can just make that part of the batch or droplet process. Because remember, the right-hand column in batch and droplet is what do you want to happen to the file after it's done. So either way, it's up to you. So in this case, if I wanted to make a batch for this, I can go to File, Automate Batch. And I want to run the watermark action on whatever folder I choose. But then when it's done, I want to put them in another folder. And we'll make that new folder on the desktop. And we'll make that new folder and we'll call it watermarked, meaning it's been done. Create, choose that folder. That's where it's going to put them. And then you can give it whatever naming convention you want. All right, so now let's choose the folder we want this to happen on. We'll choose not the blog images folder, but we'll choose watermark number 1. Watermark me. All right, that's the folder I want it to happen on. So use this watermark on this folder, and then when you're done, put them in this folder. All right, so let's see. I think that should do it. All right, let's click OK. Let's try it. I may have to change one thing here, but let's see if it works. All right, click OK. It's doing it. Done. Or not done. Still doing it. All right, now done. Okay, so if I go to the desktop, in my watermarked folder, I've got my 4 images, and since I didn't tell it what file type to use or anything like that, it just kept them as PSDs. And now this is portrait, big file obviously, with my watermark, and this one is landscape. My watermark should be over there. Over there. Over there. It worked. All right, so that is conditional actions in a batch mode to run on a whole folder. And again, I'm just doing 4 for the sake of time, but it could easily be 40, 400, 4,000, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000, how many ever images you want to run at a time. And of course, it will be based on the speed of your computer, the number of images, the size of the files, all of that, however long it takes Photoshop to open up each one and do all the steps that you told it to do. So the time is based on the speed of your computer and the size of the files. All right, let me just check for questions here. Okay, let's see here. Well, hey, Dion Lewis, I'm glad you think this is awesome. Your favorite lesson, cool. Steph, I've missed your avatar. All right. Hello, Michael. Okay, perfect. All right. Okay, so one more thing on actions. We're kind of running out of time, but I don't run the actions panel the way we see it now. Meaning where we got folders and you twirl them down and you click on an action and you click play. That's even too slow for me. The reason I made actions is because it would be quick. So I don't want to have to find the action, twirl it down, click play, blah, blah, blah. I just want to click a button. So every time I've shown this in the past, I've even had people tweet to me and send me Facebook messages and say, do you have a plugin that does that? Like, what is that? Like, how did you get that to happen? And what they're referring to is anytime that you see my actions panel normally, it doesn't look like this. My actions panel, which by the way, my retouching actions are the ones I use the most, and they're never twirled down like this, and they're never looking this way. The way my actions panel normally looks is like this. If you go to your flyout menu, at the very top is my favorite command. It's called button mode. But before we get to it, I want to show one thing. When you right click, or let's see if we double click. No, I can't do it that way. Do I have to? I'm trying to get to the area. Go to the action options. When you make an action, one of the things you can do is, number one, you can assign a function key to it. So if it's an action you use so often that you just want to hit a keyboard command for it, you can hit any one of your F keys and add a shift or a command, so you can use all these F keys like 3 times. That's number one. I don't use the F keys. But what I definitely do is I assign them a color. Hang on, Photoshop's thinking. And that gives it a green, a blue, an orange, a red, or whatever color I pick. And I'm not sure why I'm pausing, waiting for the color thing to pop up. But the reason, now the colors mean nothing in the normal list view. But when you're, hopefully I didn't hose Photoshop here, but in the button mode, what the colors will do is give you the ability to not only just click on an action to run it as a button, but you'll see them by color. So maybe you divide your actions based on your workflow. So there we go. There's the color thing popping up. So you can assign them a different color. So I can assign Smart Sharpen a red color, for example. Now when I click OK and click button mode, look at what happens. By the way, I normally don't have it this wide. Let's go ahead and shrink it back down. Okay, so now all of these are buttons, and the ones that are the ones I use the most are in color. So that way I can quickly see it and click on it. So for example, what do some of these actions do? Let me open up a portrait here. I don't have one there. Let's go over here. Let's go find a portrait. All right, we'll use this beautiful young person that we always use. All right, so for example, if I wanted to dodge and burn this person, which means basically accentuate the shadows and highlights, then I have an action called dodge and burn. Well, what does that really do? Don't you just go to the dodge and burn tool? Well, not really, because I do a couple things first. I duplicate the layer first and set the duplicate of the layer to luminosity, and then I switch to the burn tool and I start painting. So since I do those first couple of things over and over and over again, I don't want to have to do them manually. So I just, when I'm ready to dodge burn, click, done. Meaning I'm ready now. I'm in the burn tool. I'm ready to go. It's switch tools, duplicated my layer, set it to luminosity. I can now paint. So a lot of my retouching involves a duplicate layer. It involves setting up some options first, and that way I just click a button and I'm ready to start. I don't have to do all the steps and then paint and switch to the tool. It's just ready to go. So for example, now with dodge and burn, I just make my brush a little bit bigger here, and let me make sure you guys can see this. So I can go in. Oh, hold on. I don't know what I just did there. Oh no. Whatever I just did, Photoshop did not like it one bit. All right, hang on for a second. There we go. Oh, my calibration must be off. Hang on for a second, guys. Because every time I go to use my stylus, it jumps all the way over to the other monitor. So let's recalibrate real quick. Only take a second. Welcome, tablet. And calibration. And we want to color calibrate to the Cintiq. That's why you're off in the first place. Calibrate. Come on, there we go. So we want to do that, and we want to touch that, and we want to touch this, and we want to touch that, and we're now okay. Calibration complete. and now we're back. Okay, so now it should know where I am, and now, yes, it does, and now I can go ahead and give her shadows on her face, a little bit more shadow, add a little shadow to the hair, so forth and so on. And now, for example, if I switch to the dodge tool, same thing here. I do the opposite. So if I go to my highlight areas, do my highlights, the highlight areas, the areas I want to accentuate as far as highlights are concerned. And now the difference is that was before, it looked okay, it looked good. That's after. Just a little bit more depth or punch to the image by allowing me to dodge and burn. Now, this is not a dodge and burning exercise, but the point is I'm able to go in and quickly get to what I want because I have an action and my actions are now buttons. So anything I want to do, click the button and it just performs that action. Okay, so with that said, let's check the comments here. Thomas Higgs. No, we're not resting in peace, Fran. We recovered. All right, let's go ahead and say don't save. Sometimes, again, sometimes you're ready to panic, and if you just give it a second, let it finish spinning and doing whatever it's doing, it will finish. But usually it's because we are impatient and we freak out, and we don't want to wait any longer. Or you have waited a significant amount of time, and it's just not going to work. So those are the cases where it is a force quit or reboot, and luckily we haven't hit any of those today. All right, in 3 more minutes, we're going to switch the stream over to my intro to Photoshop. And I was looking for something else to show with the button actions, but I don't have a good image to show it real quick. So since I only have 3 minutes left, let's do something else. Let's talk about, here, I'll do this. Let's go to File, Open. I did this earlier in the week on the stream. Let's go to my demo files here. And let's go to, I don't know which folder they're in. If they're in this Photoshop folder or they're in my other Photoshop folder. Let's see if they're in here. Probably in my other Photoshop folder. Oh, no, they're here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to open up this folder, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab these. So I'm going to open up images that are part of a panorama. So just open them all up, and there they are. And we don't need the dodge tool or burn tool. So these are all part of a panorama image. And part of the automation is also just stitching things together and creating contact sheets and all of those things. So just remember, you've got more under Automate, like Photo Merge, Contact Sheet, and you've got things under Script, like the Image Processor, Delete All My Empty Layers. These are all scripts to automate things in Photoshop as well. So one last thing before we switch the stream over, and that is Photo Merge. And if I go to Photo Merge, I can say add the open files. And I just want to point out, I showed this earlier this week, but there is a new command that says content aware fill the open areas. I don't have time to show the before and after, so we'll just show the after, and we'll go ahead and open it or click OK, and it will automatically process all those images, merge them, stitch them together, and automate filling in the gaps that you would normally have around the edge when you shoot a panorama with content aware fill. So it's doing all of its things, it's blending, it's figuring it all out. And here it comes. And there it is. So the selection that's made, this is the area, all the marching ant area, this area right in here, this would have all been white, or transparent, I should say, if the content aware fill hadn't done its job. So now I've got a panorama that was automated just from me going click, 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 stitch it together, fill in the areas, blend in the seams, do it all automatically. So I hope you enjoyed automating Photoshop CC. We didn't even get to automating Lightroom. I apologize for that. We'll have to do a part 2 of this. Maybe we'll do the part 2 next Friday. And yeah, I might have enough for a part 2. So if you like automating, let's continue this on part 2 next Friday. And now we're going to switch the stream over to my CC Learning stream, which is Introduction to Photoshop Part 8, How to Work Non-Destructively, or Ways to Work Non-Destructively. Now, what this means is if you're on Facebook, I'm going to stop the stream, and there will be a new stream to watch. If you're on Twitch, I'm going to stop the stream. There'll be a new stream to watch, but you don't have to go anywhere. And if you're watching the video on demand, just watch the next video. Take care, guys. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for Intro to Photoshop. It'll take me hopefully less than 60 seconds to get back. Take care. Thanks.